Welcome to CEO Money. I'm Michael Yorba. Thanks for joining us. I have Russell Williamson, strategic thinker and leader, on the show with us. He is also Cheryl Williamson's husband, and he has got a tremendous story for us: success through willpower and right thinking. All right, Russ, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
I'm glad you're here. Tell our audience a little bit about your background. I want to hear how you got into sports, how you ended up in West Point. I definitely want the audience to hear about the Deacon story, but then how you became a sports agent and the thinking that went on in your mind to overcome the obstacles that most people couldn't had they not had the right way to think. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Fantastic. Well, one, I'll start with, very simple and humble beginnings. Grew up in a single-parent home as an only child, and was the first within my family, first generation to go to college. So my family and my mother, candidly, was very unfamiliar with the process of getting into college, as well as student loans, scholarships, just that entire needed understanding of the steps to go beyond high school to college. However, I had a true desire to get my college degree. And so I really began to work while I was in high school. So, putting high school sports to the side, began to work towards preparing myself for paying for that. Well, along that path came the opportunity to go to West Point. And I had fortunately done very well in school and had already gotten accepted to George Washington in Washington, D.C., which is my home. Well, when West Point came along, I was very unfamiliar with it because I also, no one in my family had served the country in service in the military. And so as I got this information, it was really through my mom's job, where she was a deputy of Register of Wills for the state of Maryland, and her interaction with the state senators, who then enlightened us on how prestigious West Point really is, and some of the great graduates, like the Grants and Eisenhowers that had gone there. And so as I began to look further into it, and West Point began to reach out to me and send a recruiter to me, an officer, to talk about it, it really became very attractive to me. And then more importantly, obviously, it was, I was trading, the ability to get my education to serve the country. Two very, very important things in my life going forward.
Now, you went in with one intent and came out with another.
That is
Tell
correct.
us about that process.
Yeah, so going in, one, obviously I wanted to be an engineer. Two, I wanted to get my, wanted to go into the service and serve my time. And I was thinking as I came out, I would either be an engineer, maybe for the Department of the Army or the Corps of Engineers, or serve in other aspects of the country, maybe not in uniform, but still continue to be either in law enforcement or something of that nature. Well, I learned while I was in school that I wouldn't be able to get my license to sit on the bench as an engineer. And if I desired to do that, I'd actually, after graduating, I'd have to go back to another 4-year school to even be prepared to take the test after I served in the military. So that didn't seem like a great option at that point in time, but took all of my focus on math and sciences and moved it over to economics, and that's where I got my degree, and decided that I wanted to go into the service in a role that would allow me to later on transition back to civilian life after the military. And so I chose to be what's called quartermaster in the Army, but it's really logistics. Mm-hmm. And so that did serve me well, and I was a logistics officer. A couple other things as any college student is going through all the decision making of what they wanted to do. I went through several imaginations of what roles I wanted to play and what I thought was transferable. So my first one, actually, to be candid with you, was I thought I was going to be a pilot. I wanted to go and fly, rotary wing helicopters, and my eyesight going right at the end of my junior year went really bad, and I started wearing glasses. So that became a non-option, thus logistics. So I went into that. But what I did do is I did jump, and I became a paratrooper. While I was there, I went to Fort Bragg. I was in part of the 18th Airborne Corps and supported the 82nd, the Ranger Battalions, and all the other unique units that are located at Bragg.
Tell us about the deployment. What happened there?
Yeah, so I deployed for the Persian Gulf War, and really to my surprise, I never envisioned as I was going in the military that I'd be going into conflict. However, the person that I am, whenever faced with a challenge, I really began to think about, okay, how do I deliver the very best outcome I can? How do I get to excellence? So if there's three words that would define Russell Williamson going forward, it would be integrity, results, and excellence. And so every time I'm faced with a situation, I was like, okay, how do I get those three things? One, I'm going to show up with integrity. Two, I need to get the desired outcome or the results. And three, I want to do it at the highest possible level of excellence. And while I was deployed, the Army decided, for those who might remember, General Schwarzkopf, who was the leader of all the combined forces, they decided to do a total 180 shift in doctrine, in theater, which was typically our combat arms are out front and our support, like I was, logistics, is secondary, comes behind. Well, they decided that this was going to be a very rapid war, and it was going to be a war that we were going to be totally dominant and control. And so they decided to put the logistics out front. And so I was tasked with the responsibility to set up what we call logistical bases in preparation for our assault into Kuwait and into Iraq. And so it was a very unique opportunity. And again, for someone who wasn't expecting to be in theater,
Let alone out front.
let alone out front, it became very challenging. But again, because of just what I had learned and developed and what I learned at home and what I learned in college, to say, okay, I want to deliver excellence in this situation. And thus, as a result of it, unbeknownst to me, we did so well, the team, the unit, moved things in such a very positive way that it was actually captured and written in a book called Moving Mountains by General George Brigonis.
How did you transfer from that into being a sports agent?
Great question. Well, again, I'll go all the way back to when I kind of took my desire to play sports in high school and hung it up.
Yeah.
Well, I had two in West Point, and that's just a requirement. So I got a chance to feed that a little bit while I was there. But I've never been the greatest athlete. But I just have a strong attraction to sports, football, basketball, baseball. I just love sports and the competitive nature. And one of the things that you do learn while you're in West Point, if you don't have it already, is that sense of competition. And so that's something that, runs true in me in everything I do. There is a sense of competing, and oftentimes I'm competing just against me to do better than I did last. And so sports is a natural way to have that evolve in a very positive way. Right. And so I love not only that, but I also love helping others. And I wanted to help young men who were going into sports. And so a good friend of mine who played professionally, we were playing golf one day, and we were just talking about business and the things that I've been doing. And he shared with me, he goes, man, you'd be great representing some of these young guys that are coming out of college playing sports. And my immediate thought was I need to have a JD, right? I need to have a law degree. He was like, no. You just need to be able to pass the test for the NFL and for the other leagues as well. But we started the NFL, and I went in and spoke to the NFLPA, and they told me the process. And I went and sat and took the exam and got my license. And then I went out and began to go through the process of recruiting players, and had the opportunity to sign a few players and get them contracts in the NFL. And wonderful experience. Truly.
How'd you like that?
Intense. I love it. I loved it because for me, when I see others win and I have a chance to be a part of that, I feel like I win as well.
That's the servant leadership you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now tell me about the successes that you've got by being Mr. Williamson.
Yes.
With Cheryl.
She's the first success.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a dynamite woman.
So it's always good to have one behind you, man.
Exactly.
Or with you.
Oh, yes, or with you. And it's most of that. We partner. We're alongside each other.
Yeah.
And she is candidly one of the ways that I know that God loves me. So when I see her and I know that He, in His infinite wisdom, designed for us to come together, I knew that He loved me. When I didn't know how to look out for myself and I had a different idea of what I thought would be good for Russell, He was like, no. Let me show you exactly what I have for you. And she has been that person. So she'd be my first success. And then second, since we've been married, her support, her encouragement around my desire to represent players in the NFL, she supported me along the way and has been a big part of being a business partner with me. When we engage the young men, or I engage the young men, I also engage their families. And so she's a part of that equation of having that conversation. Certainly, oftentimes there's a mom. More times than not, there's more moms than dads. But when there's moms and dads, she's certainly a part of that dialogue. So they can see that, when I talk about my integrity and results and excellence, that I'm a family person and families are important to me. And that my desire is to see their positive growth, right? You'll get an experience that only, 1% of young men who desire it will get, and that is to, one, play a game that you love, two, potentially earn millions at doing it. How do you take that, and while you might have a short window to enjoy that experience, but parlay that into having a productive balance of your life?
Right.
So she's a big part of that, and a big part of that, you know, the success factor. So she asked me to write the foreword in this book as she brought these young women together to talk about their challenges in business. And she felt like, well, you know, you'd be no better example than someone who's been in business for himself, had some businesses that have failed and not done well. And I think that's probably the more important part of being in business than the successes that you have, because you learn so much more in how you want to do it as you go onward. So she allowed me to write in the book to talk about that, to talk about, you know, what are some of the things that I've experienced along the way and the challenges that I've had.
What's the central theme in the foreword that you have for the audience? Tell them.
Oh, yeah, certainly. So the central theme within Success Factor is really that anyone has the ability to succeed. And candidly, the one thing that we all bring to the table is potential. And it's whether or not you want to leverage that potential. Do you want to activate it? There's something that burns deep inside of you. There's a dream, a goal, something that you want to achieve. And there's no time like the present to take that step forward. Now, you may stumble, but don't see the stumble as a setback or an impediment to you getting there. It is more so a setup, an opportunity for you to learn something and for you to apply it going forward. And then most often, your success isn't just for you, but it's for the people that are around you. So that they can see like, hey, if you can win, I can win too.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, you've been watching CEO Money with Michael Yorba. Don't forget, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.